Hey, welcome back. So we had some great conversation, and we're going to continue the conversation with Nathan. And we talked a little bit about his journey, and some of the things that the culture was telling him that maybe he's gay or maybe he's bi, and sort of what those challenges were. And then at 18 he went to a different church, and he found out what his true identity was. And so we're going to pick up right there and talk a little bit about that and continue to hear about his story. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. All right. So, you're 18.
I'm 18. I'm 18. So, interestingly enough, while I still got God's confirmation about what I needed to be from the time I was maybe 17, so right before that year of God, transitioning me into a place where I could hear Him, better. I was confronted by the fact that, okay, everything that I'm thinking is making me believe that I may be gay. I don't know if I'm bi. I don't know what I am, right? I don't know what I am. But I knew I wasn't going to act on any of that. Mm-hmm. Because I was like, okay, if that's the less normal of being straight and then acting out and being straight, then maybe the remedy to anything that I'm thinking about, being gay and all that stuff, is to be overly sexual in a straight manner. And so when I was 17, I started to really look for opportunities, sexual opportunities with these girls, and I was, a minor as well. So just to clarify that, I was young and I was just trying to figure out,
right,
if I pursue women sexually, maybe that's what I need to make things click in my head. Maybe that's what I need to turn off this gay version that's living in my subconscious.
Right.
And it even got to a point where, would I be satisfied with knowing that at least maybe I'm bisexual? Right?
Right. So you decided to go, well, let's go down this road. Let's go test this out.
Tested the waters, yep.
And see if this will answer some of the questions in my mind. And so what happened?
And so basically, high school is a pit of sexually frustrated teenagers, just to say the least. And so opportunities came easy. I was a very charismatic person just because, again, I grew up with sisters, so I knew women well enough to at least start a conversation.
Right.
But it was really hard because I was like, wait, how do I flirt? How do I do this? How do I do that? But all I had in my head was like, all right, but I need an end goal because I need to achieve my goal of, like, if I can have sex with a woman, then I'm not gay.
Right.
And so it just led to me being very womanizing in how I would treat women. I would still be kind, very generous, very sweet, but that was all superficial. Right. That was all in attempts. I was manipulating these women into believing, hey, I like you, this and that, but they had no idea what I was struggling with.
Right.
They had no idea that they're talking to someone that in their head, all they want is a sexual encounter to counteract the fact that I might be gay.
Right.
They didn't know that.
They didn't know that, but it was your turmoil inside, right?
Yeah.
And so as you continued to pursue the women and act out, was that answering the question?
So I got involved with one, and no. Long story, very short, no.
Yeah.
I would still catch myself looking at a man and saying, what am I appreciating about this person? What the heck is going on in here that is making me think, sure, maybe there's a life with that guy right there.
Right.
But none of it made sense. Because I would think about it, I was like, that doesn't make sense. There's no connection point in here besides years of having something hammered into me, an ideology.
Right.
That's all it was.
Right.
An ideology just pressed into me, like an engraving, like I was marked.
Yeah, right. So did you do other searching or other testing, as your words?
At that point, I just, even outside of trying to be exploring and sexuality, straight sexuality, whatever, I just kind of picked up the ability to try and be good at everything.
Right.
To try and pick up everything as a hobby. I got into ceramics. I got into
Cool.
art.
Ceramics.
Yeah,
That's
I still
cool.
love that. I'm still
That's
glad
great.
that in this whole journey of trying to figure out what was going on, I did pick up
I love
a
it.
few things that I'm grateful that now I know.
Right.
But it was all the outcome of just trying to figure out how can I cover up and how can I silence the voices in my head, trying to take charge, trying to tell me, stop trying to look in other places, just accept the fact that you're gay.
Yeah. And did you have, so you had this battle, right,
Yep.
of you're gay, but was there a sense that, and it sounds like you're saying this, but was there a sense that, no, I can't, that can't be true because of how you're brought up or because of your church experience or what was that dialogue in your head?
It's crazy because I'm being convinced by some voice in my head that I'm gay, but I'm also being told by one, my common sense, and then my conscious self, don't because you're afraid. You're living in fear of what people are going to say, so you're never going to do it.
Right.
You're never
Right.
going to do it.
Right.
And then it got to a point where I was entertaining my depression and my life. You know,
And when you say entertaining your depression,
falling into it,
right.
allowing myself to let that become an identity. And this is still when I got
Okay.
to that church
Mm-hmm.
and I had this revelation of what God was telling me to do. But because it was so many years of, again, just a hammering of ideology that just wasn't true, it's not easy to overnight just say, all right, thanks, God.
Right.
It makes so much sense now.
Right.
Because at that point, it's second nature to believe everything that was a lie.
Right. Because you, like, basically 5 years, 6 years of trying to figure all this out, testing, having some sexual relationships, performance, like, let me try all these different activities so I can sort of like stifle the noise that's being, in my head and from the culture. And so now you go to the service and you hear what your true identity is in Christ. And why don't you share with those who are listening if you can remember, like, what happened that said, okay, wait, this is my identity, but then it didn't. To your point, it didn't happen overnight. What was that journey like?
So I think that in the same way, people can say that this is my calling. They go into a work field and like, this is what I was made for, right? They can acknowledge that. It still takes years to get really good at that.
Yes.
Doesn't matter if you walk in first day and you know your skill, it's going to take years for it to develop and actually be good. That's why you'll be eligible for a promotion, etc. All those things. There's still growth in the process.
Right.
So digressing to the day that I had that encounter, it was interesting because I'm sitting in the fourth row. I remember that. Fourth row on the left side of the room. It was about 400 young adults or students. I would say around my age, varying. And the speaker, he's a really close friend of mine now, but he's just talking over the fact that, like, we root ourselves in so many of the lies that people want to tell us because the enemy wants to distract us.
Right.
The enemy wants us to feel cross-eyed when Jesus is standing right in front of us.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true.
And it was an aha moment, and the light bulb went off and everything. And I remember walking out and I'm saying to myself, like, God, it was really easy for me to accept that and say, I can root myself in you 100%.
Right.
Like my spirit was tugged to that.
Right.
The first time
Yeah.
ever.
Wow.
Years of struggling
Wow.
with my sexuality, my identity, and not being tugged to anything. And then the one time that a 30-minute message is presented to me is when I feel that pull of, let me embrace you.
Right. And so so you felt that, and then you left. What happened next? Like, how did you,
At this point,
right?
now I'm conflicted because I'm still having to battle all of the ideas of my identity and if I'm gay or all these things. But it's fighting the fact that, Nate, you know the truth now.
Right.
You've got no excuse. Now you have to wake up and choose this every day.
Right. oh, so there was a transforming choice there. There was a choice,
Absolutely.
right? Because we have free will, right? So we get to choose.
Yeah.
And now you have both information right in front of you.
It's like I had a seesaw for so many years with just one person sitting on it. And now I have two.
That's great.
And now I got to find that balance of, all right, knowing this is a lie, so when it gets that upper hand, to let it fall right back down.
Right.
And so it was hard because I didn't fully commit myself to what God had already revealed to me. You know, it was still years of just trying to figure out 18 to 19 to 20 to 21. Those years were really pivotal, you know, and I can remember the days where I would make the right choice, but there were still so many days where I didn't make the right one.
Right. And so you were continuing to attend that same church during that time frame?
Yeah.
Right. And so the days where you were making good choices, right? Did you sense the presence of the Lord? Were you in the Word? Like, what does that look like? And then the days where you made a choice to sort of step away, you know, share with those listening what that looks like.
Yeah.
Because that's the reality, is that when we walk towards Jesus, it doesn't mean everything's going to be completely done. We have a choice to continue each and every day to seek Him and to lean in on Him. And it's a journey. It gets better and it gets easier, but it doesn't happen overnight all the time. So can you share a little bit what that looks like?
This is where I learned for the first time that it had to be a relationship. It required me to put work into it. You know, the examples of good relationships around me would always preface, hey, this is not going to work if you don't want to commit.
Right.
And so the days that I would fall out, I would realize those were the days that I just did not commit. Those were the days that I let that ideology come back and get the better of me again.
Right.
You know, and every day it just had to be a choice. Nate, are you going to choose what God has literally called over you and given you that way out?
Right.
Or are you going to keep falling back into something? And then not only falling back into that gay ideology, but also now, because I opened the door to straight sexual encounters, now that's another one.
Right.
Now that's another thing that I opened the door to,
Right.
that I have to choose against every single day.
Right.
So now I'm battling, am I gay? I'm battling, do I want to go have sex and see if it just cancels the fact that I think I'm gay? But now I'm also realizing, Lord, am I going to choose you?
Right.
Because these things are so superficial that they'll make me feel something in the moment, but it will never amount to the promise that you've told me over myself.
Right. Because these things, right? The battlefield of the mind, the gay, am I bi? The sexual encounters are short term.
Absolutely.
They're not everlasting.
They're not.
Jesus, His love, is never ending, unconditional, right? And so as you continue to lean, you start to understand that and go, oh wait, I want this. I want eternity.
No, absolutely. And then I also recognized something that I didn't know that I needed to accept, where longevity is a real thing. Something that lasts is a real thing.
Right.
You know, my upbringing was, again, it's a Christian background, but the conversation of something lasting, really weird, but it never stuck to me. But then because all these other agendas of trying to make me believe something were all like, it's right now, it's right now, it's right now. You're going to feel good right now.
In the moment. Let's be
in
in
the
the
moment.
moment.
You're going to feel now. So if you choose that every day, you're always going to be good.
Yeah.
You're always going to feel good.
Yeah, but at the reality, when the next morning or even that night, it's like, man, this is not satisfying. It's not filling the void. Right?
Nope. And I also noticed, if I leaned more into something that was so temporary, I would stray so far from something that would help me recognize what guilt was, what shame was, what acknowledging truth meant.
Right.
Because it would detach me. I would become desensitized to all those feelings.
Yeah.
If I do something over and over again, I'm going to lose the feeling of what guilt is to me.
Right.
It's going to take a really hard wake-up call for that to happen. And so what I was experiencing was a withdrawal episode moment of everything that I was allowing to
Right.
take me day by day.
Right. Yeah, withdrawal meaning what?
Meaning, if I chose God, I was having the withdrawal that I wasn't entertaining my subconscious.
Right.
I wasn't allowing that to take me.
Yeah.
But then when I fell back into that,
Yeah.
I'd have withdrawals of God's promise.
Right.
And so I realized and I recognized, all right, one thing's going to last, one thing's not going to. So I'd rather have withdrawals that are going to last me at the few years that it may, or even my life here on earth. But because now I know the promise of eternity, the withdrawals that I'll experience here won't amount to anything in comparison to what I'll live when I'm gone.
Right. So at some point, you had to really make a decision.
Yeah, I had to. And so getting to that, my decision came in 2020, COVID.
Okay.
COVID hit.
Yeah.
So that left a lot of time to think, a lot of isolation.
Yeah.
So because you're isolated, you have no ability to entertain anything or even give a temporary satisfaction.
Right.
You're locked inside.
Right.
So at that point, you just have to confront your mind
Right.
and your spirit.
Right.
That's all you can do. So it got to the point where I would wake up frustrated, sexually frustrated, emotionally frustrated, frustrated to the sense that to the degree that I would be shaking, panicking, pacing. It got bad. It got so bad.
Yeah.
And it while also having to work from home, in the sense that I was doing church production, hosting all of our online services. I had like 4 computers in front of my face, so I'm already overwhelmed by what I had to do.
Right.
Loving my church, but overwhelmed and not being able to speak to myself, to call my spirit to attention.
Right.
That just
Right.
it didn't feel like it was possible.
Right.
And so one night I wasn't feeling too well, and I took a COVID test, and I was like, oh, I'm positive. I came back positive for COVID. And then my health went from like, I don't feel great, to really bad, really quick. And so in those low moments, it was just a lot of physical agony. But then I found a almost parallel to what my spirit and my mind had been feeling for years.
And what was that like? What was that parallel?
It was like, I'm now feeling outwardly what has been happening in my mind. The excruciating pain of, I can't do anything right now.
Right.
I can't do anything right now.
So you were that ill that you couldn't do anything.
I was so debilitated. And not to mention, 2019, I also had a spontaneous pneumothorax, so my lung collapsed.
Okay.
So when I got COVID, I was still in the recovery season of my surgery.
Right, and share what that meant in recovery, because you shared before we started talking today what that was like. That was a long recovery.
It was about 2 years.
Yeah.
About 2 years. So even after COVID, I was still recovering. But what that meant was, one, I was always out of breath. Couldn't laugh, couldn't speak over a very certain volume, very quiet like this. And I would just cough erratically. It was just terrible experience, but it was a recovery nonetheless. And so going back to when I got COVID and I was just so debilitated, and I thought, Lord, am I going to die? Am I not going to make it?
Yeah.
Am I not going to? And this wasn't even me fear-mongering myself. It was just, I don't have control.
Right.
I don't know where I'm at. I don't know if I'm going to wake up tomorrow.
Yeah.
But then I was confronted again with almost like God's voice saying, I was like, you've been dealing with all of this exact pain internally. You've been dealing with all of this hodgepodge of things that you can't control.
Yeah. Right. But trying to.
Trying.
Yeah.
And
now it's outward. It's because you're the physical piece of all this pain
yeah.
that you have no control over.
Yep. It was kind of back to the point where we were talking in the first episode, where it was just like all I could do those years leading up to that point was ingest. It was through my eyes and through my ears.
Mm-hmm.
I had no way of feeling that out. I had no way of that being an expression physically where I could see how that was, manifesting within on my exterior.
Right.
And so when I got this sick, I realized, I was like, man, this is not just COVID. This is a physical manifestation of everything I've held in, everything that I know that was not for me to carry. And God met me there, and he was like, I've been trying to get you out of this, but you've been listening to the wrong voices.
Mm.
And it was just that night where I woke up and I was gasping for air, because not only was I recovering from my surgery, I had air pockets that were left in there. I had a terrible cough that was just unbearable. I woke up one night and I just couldn't breathe. I was gasping for air. I could not find oxygen for my life. And in that moment, I said, Lord, I surrender. I have no idea what's going on. I surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember mouthing it. I said, I mouthed it, and I said, God, take me for everything that I am.
Right.
And in that moment, I felt all that air come right back through.
Mm.
And there was a stillness.
Mm.
I still felt terrible physically.
Yeah.
But there was a peace that finally, over so many years, everything that I had been praying for, everything that I had told myself, it'll happen one day.
Yeah.
You don't know when, but it's going to happen.
Right.
In that moment, God said, thank you.
Yeah.
I've been wanting this.
Yeah.
Like, I felt accepted.
Right. So so you've surrendered everything.
Everything.
All the mind, the questioning, your physical, all the control, the performance, everything.
Everything.
And then what did he do?
In that moment, he told me my identity, and it was as his son.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, you're mine.
Yeah.
You're mine, and I've made you for a time as this, and you've gone through what you've needed to go through because you're going to change the world.
Yeah.
And the world may be for people.
Right. How did it make you feel to hear him tell you that you are his son?
Interestingly, the first time that I heard it, I still had the inclination to reject it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was big.
Yeah.
It was big. It was God himself presenting him and saying, you're mine now.
Yeah.
And not in a way where I lost who I was, but gained who I was instead. Right. And not, I don't have control, but him having control will be better.
Right. Was it like you just like, Lord, I've done all this stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was just like, I've tried to listen to you. It was internal battles. It was exterior. It was just like, I've done this. Where have you been?
Right.
But not once during those years had I said, take me for what I am.
Right.
And so for me to get to a point where I was just so low physically and mentally, to just say, Lord, I surrender it.
Mm-hmm.
I surrender it.
Right.
And then for it to be that quick.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then me kind of looking at myself and saying, dude, come on, you could have done this sooner.
Right. Yeah, but it does take us, we have to get to a certain point.
Absolutely.
Where we are willing to surrender it all.
Yeah.
And trust and let Jesus take it and then tell us who we are.
Absolutely.
And that's what happened to you. So tell me and share with those listening, why is knowing your identity in Jesus Christ so important?
Man, that is a lifetime conversation. But in short, knowing your identity and who Jesus is, it's really interesting because it's a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that you tell him he is, he will abundantly bless you with in return.
Yeah. And what does that look like? Can you give an example of how you've experienced that?
Absolutely. So my dad, he stepped away when I was 17. He's no longer in the picture. My parents got divorced. He's living his life. still have a lot of love for him, but he just hasn't been in the picture.
Yeah.
And so I had to deal with fatherly abandonment issues. I had to deal with, how am I going to raise myself now? I know that a lot of people think that you're 18, you're an adult, but even to this day, there's things like, how do I do that?
Right, you're still very young. At 17, 18 years old, you're young. You're still learning. You're
a
still
kid.
growing. You're a kid.
I'm
Right.
24, and I can still feel like I'm
You're young.
still learning. Yeah.
24, you're young.
I'm-
Compared to my age, you're young.
You're 25, Julie.
Oh, yeah, let's keep it that way.
So, not having a father required me to be placed in a position after I surrendered myself to recognize, you're my father. Lord, you have been there for me. And you're going to continue to be there for me.
Right.
And so my acknowledgement was, if I call you out to my father, will you call me your son in return? And the more I did that, the more I realized that I had a fatherly love that surpassed. And this is not to dismiss what my earthly father has
Right.
done for me, because he did a lot.
Right.
And I'm grateful.
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
But there is an extension that goes beyond what a physical father can do versus what an internal spiritual father is going to do in you.
That's right.
And so it was just moments like that where I realized, all right, God, I see that now, me surrendering and then living into vertically sending things your way,
Right.
relinquishing things,
Right.
calling out to you,
Right.
all of those things.
Yeah.
You have placed and planted a seed within me that will grow a fire into just wanting to keep throwing things back at you. Like,
Right.
Lord,
Right.
I will exalt you for the end to the end of my life because of
Yeah.
that point.
Right. Right.
And now looking back, it's like, man, you always think, why did it take me so long?
Right.
Why did it take me so
Right.
long?
Right.
But I do also acknowledge that one, God's timing is perfect.
Right.
But two, I've learned so much now that I'm able to just carry as my testimony and talk to people that if they're going through something similar, I may not have the solution,
Right.
but even one conversation can spark that change that they may need.
Yeah. And help them know that they're not alone. Right.
None of us are.
We're not alone. We're not alone. And, I'm so grateful to know you and so grateful for you to share your story. Before we end, I just want to ask, is there anything else that you want to share those listening that you feel like would be important for them to know?
Absolutely. In my life personally, I've had to deal with a lot of hard seasons where people around me are conflicted, in pain, in just times of need. And the way that God has developed me over these years has allowed me to be present, has allowed me to be an example of Jesus. Not a perfect person,
Right.
but an example. If I'm choosing compassion, Jesus will use me to portray that.
Right.
And I think what I'll say with that is, if you know that you want to get to a point of surrenderance and you finally do, everything after, you may not know what's written, but if you're obedient, God will use you.
Amen. That's right.
You're going to be that vessel, no
That's
matter
right.
what,
That's right.
and big or small, but you're going to be used for the edification of God's kingdom.
Right. That's right. And thank you for sharing. And so for those of you who are listening, if this is the first time you've heard about Jesus Christ and you're like, well, I think that's the answer, you can pray a simple prayer. And it's really simple to pray. And, it goes just like this. And we would love for you to just say this prayer and accept him as your Lord and Savior, if that's your choice, right? And so it's I acknowledge you as my Lord and Savior. I know that I'm a sinner and I've sinned. But I come to you now and ask for forgiveness and ask that you will be my Lord and Savior. And if you've just prayed that prayer, there's a celebration happening right now, because you are now welcome into a big, huge family, and we're excited. We want to hear from you. right? We want to hear from you, and we will celebrate with you. So Nathan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to have you back for sure, because there's more.
Always is.
Yep. So I pray that you have a blessed day, and we'll see you next time on Your True Identity.
See ya.